I cannot rest. And it's not just Kelly and I that's going to retire. Like, we need to figure out a path for everyone. So my experience of foreign missions is guilt.
All right, well, hello. Welcome to the official, unofficial Acts2 Network podcast. We are launching Lifelong Kingdom workers from every college town. My name is Steven.
I'm Isaiah.
And today we have Pastor Ed.
Yay.
Hello. Thanks for making time and coming on the podcast.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about something I think pretty interesting.
I think a lot of people are going to want to hear it.
Yeah. And we want to pick your brain today, Dad, about the future of our church. And I think...
For those of you who don't know,
yes,
Dad,
my dad, yeah. So we want to talk about the future of our church and particularly like what it's going to look like after you and Mom retire. And I think that's increasingly a reality that we're having to face into, that's coming.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, I don't know if people know this, but like when we were first talking about some of these things like 2 years ago, I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, but when we were talking about it 2 years ago, like the plan was for you to go into like some form of retirement, like this year, I think was the initial plan, right? Kind of
sabbatical.
That. Yeah, like a sabbatical. That got put on hold because of the foreign missions things. So before we get into like the rest of things, wanted to just talk about that. Like what was that initial plan and then what happened with the foreign mission thing? Because I think that's kind of an interesting story too.
Yeah, well, I think it was 2020 or something where I declared that at age 65, so that would be 2028, that I'm going to step down, that we're going to step down. And then COVID happened, and so the plan to sort of ramp up to that or ramp down to that, whatever, got derailed by 2 years. Somewhere along there, we were supposed to set up the structure that would go on without us at the helm, and then we would stress test that structure by being gone a year. That's still my hope that would happen.
Wait, so when we first said that, what year was it theoretically supposed to happen? Like
2025.
2020. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
or no. Earlier, because then we would have like 3 years to fix things afterwards.
Okay.
So it was
That'll be 20.
whatever that was. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then this past year, okay, so theoretically you guys might still do that next year. Okay. But I think it has been a little bit of a wrench in the plans because of the foreign mission thing. And, I heard recently that one of our ministry partners that has been helping us kind of think through this whole plan was like, what did he say?
That's great that you guys did that.
Yeah,
it wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah, he was like, I turned my head away for a minute, and you guys started 8 new mission fields.
That's great.
So-
Don't do that again.
I think it would be interesting to hear a little bit about because that wasn't in the plans, at least in your mind.
It was not in the plans.
How did foreign missions come to be?
Heard from God. And
Yeah,
Yeah, oh boy. Oh my gosh. I'll just tell the story how it came to be. I was going to reach back and just share my thinking about foreign missions in general. But the way that we've worked at our church is not so much, this is gonna sound like odd to people because so much of what we do is top down, but we're also very, very person centric. So one person can have a conviction, and the whole thing can turn. It was Justin.
That was like how Davis started with like Justin Kim.
It was Justin.
Oh wow, okay. Wow. We're gonna name him. All right, Justin Kim.
Yeah. He said
it's all your fault.
He said, how can I not go back to Cambodia? I'm young. I can still do this. Could you please send us? Yeah. And I think I brushed him off year one, said, I'll find a couple of friends and maybe we'll think about it. Yeah. And he came back to me again. And then there were some other things in the air. And then, of course, EDM, hearing some pretty powerful messages about your vision is too small if it doesn't encompass the world. And
EDM is a conference for collegiate ministers.
Yeah.
One big theme of that is mission mobilization. That's the M. It's not electronic dance music.
Yeah.
Talking about
evangelism, discipleship, and missions mobilization.
Towards world missions.
and then there's sort of the diehard, like East Asia team, and so all of that was stirring, and so we decided, okay, we have to be. If we're going to do this, and we have to send a team, and if we're going to send a team, then we're going to take care of them. And if we're going to take care of them, then we might as well look at other countries in the neighborhood. And so it started with Cambodia, and then it went to Vietnam, it went to Thailand, and then
did this whole trip,
and then Indonesia. And so we did the 7-country trip in I forgot how many weeks. I think we're out there close to a month, and then came back and couldn't rule out any of those countries. And so. And so after we came back October, we sent out a sign-up sheet, and then I think 300 and some people signed up, and then we're able to field a team to those 7 countries. 84 people out there right now.
Yeah, and the idea wasn't necessarily to like start our own stuff. It was like finding people to help, but then also like exploring youth, like that kind of stuff. So
yeah,
like
so it wasn't our typical like we're gonna land near a college campus and reach college students and disciple them. And it was also like we don't have to build our own thing,
right?
Because we saw people, like heroic people out there.
Yeah.
Like, why don't we come alongside them and add fuel to what they're doing?
Yeah.
Right. So we said, hey, don't start. We're not starting our own thing. We're looking for partners, and we're looking for probably a couple of partners. Given how hyperactive we are, not one ministry could absorb our efforts. So that was the approach. And it's starting to shift a little bit in some places as we're getting some traction with college students.
So you were mentioning earlier you were going to go here, but you didn't. But I think I would like to hear, like, you're kind of broader thinking about foreign missions. Because I think maybe one question that could be asked is, how come it took us this long to do foreign missions?
But it's also not our first time.
It's not our first time. Yeah, we were in Taiwan for a long time. But what was the... Like, what shifted? Because it did seem like we were resisting it for a long time.
We're resisting it. And so my experience of foreign missions is guilt. I felt guilty before God and before mission mobilizers. Like, oh man, you're doing the hardest stuff, and then to make up for that guilt, like, hey, but we're doing a lot here, and eventually we'll get there. When we mature, eventually we'll get there. I think that's maybe the limitation of our ministry ethos is we don't just send,
Yeah.
And I think that's what distinguishes us from more nimble collegiate ministries. And I look at them and like, wow, there's power there because they're focused on 4 years. And like Crew says, win, build, and send.
Right.
But send is literally like, hey, we trained you, now you go get them in your next season of life. And we've found that people really flounder in major transitions, and college to post-college life is, I think, the biggest transition. I think it's way bigger than high school to college.
Yeah.
And so to be not there with them didn't make sense. Largely also because our ministry philosophy is that we're a family on mission together.
Yeah.
So we're Acts 2, we take care of one another. And so with that kind of ministry culture, to send overseas means we're all going overseas. That all of our attention and then I think we're kind of hung up on issues around safety a lot. I think because we're Asian, and then Asian parents don't understand that when a child reaches 18, they're adults. They don't understand that, and so whenever I think about any college student, I kind of imagine their parents, and want to be responsible toward the parents with respect to what we're asking our students, or even recent grads, or even like people 5 years out of college to do.
Yeah.
And I'm very aware of how foreign mission field can really grab somebody's heart and get them to go out there. And then the reality is very different. And it's really frustrating, and it's not what they had imagined. And would they be able to sustain that? And in order to be sure that they can sustain that, they would have to have community, and they would have to have long-term support. And every time we looked at that, we saw, the campus next town over or other campuses that we haven't been able to reach. So it was a little bit of that, and I think maybe maybe it's a sign that we have matured as a church, that now we feel like we can take this on, and like, wow, we're able to. I think we're able to support them pretty well this year.
Yeah. So what's your like assessment of? So when we did it, we pulled the trigger, we sent these teams out. What's your assessment of how that's been, and like what the future of foreign mission holds?
Yeah. Well, we sent them out. They're all full time. So
like 83 of them, right?
Yeah, and so we're supporting their rent and stipend and everything, and several things that I did not necessarily anticipate. The teams have gotten very close to each other. It's just them out there. You're at an outpost surrounded by a foreign culture. Most of these places, 1040 window, extremely low number of Christians. And so they've bonded with each other a lot. I wasn't expecting, like, I'm so happy here. I was expecting, this is hard, but it's worth it because of Jesus. What I'm hearing is, I feel so joyful here. So that was surprising. The teams are busy and doing well, and ministry has been fruitful. I thought, and I prepared them for this, like, hey, first year, not much is going to happen. You're going to absorb the culture. You're going to figure out a lot of things for team 2 and 3, how to live there, how to rent places, like, what's possible, what's not. But wow, they're making some inroads and blessing a lot of different ministries, meeting amazing people. We met this amazing network of Chinese Christians who are there in Indonesia. Like, they've moved there.
Oh, they're missionaries too.
They're missionaries. And it's business as a mission. They have a bunch of cafes, and I don't want to say more. I don't want to blow their cover, but wow.
That's crazy.
So it's been exciting. And what we told them is, you are not going to stay another year. I told them that about 10 times before they left, because I knew, can I stay? Can I extend my stay? And we said you can go only if you get parental blessing, even grudgingly, and the terms was 1 year, and so they're all serving 1 year. So now we got second-year teams ready to go, and one of the things that we're trying to test is something kind of wild and crazy. Is, can we sustain continuity and momentum on a mission field by doing this second-year team swapping with the first year? Because our short-term mission experiences has told us that affection for our teams from last summer transfers to the new team in the next summer. There's something about us that feel so, and the information transfer is going to be very thorough because we're not strangers. So that's sort of what we're trying to test. And if that should turn out to be possible, then this 1 year stint in the foreign mission field becomes an incredible like sort of leadership training experience. We got couples with 2 kids out there, and the kids are having this experience without merely turning mission trip into, like, the mission field into our own classroom for our own leadership development's sake, but actually trying to build continuity there with our mission partners and the things that we're doing. So hopefully that's the future. Now, I anticipate that some of our returnees from the mission field will want to go back long term. And I have to brace for that. And then I think we'll have to go the traditional route, get some consultation from missions experts, do some language study, and really be prepared for that. But I think that would be in the future.
So that's sort of phase 2.
Yeah.
Wow. So, we sent all these people in that, and I think now our network's on like 70 plus campuses or whatever, in 8 countries. The chessboard for when you guys retire is a lot more complicated now.
Yeah, it's like we've been building up and up and up, and now you guys are gonna be in the not too distant future stepping down. So. What can you tell us? I know a lot is still in development and kind of we're still at the drawing board, but what can you tell us about your current thoughts about what does Acts2 Network look like after you step down?
I think I'm less clear on what it looks like than what it shouldn't look like, what it's not going to look like. What it's not going to look like is what it looks like now, which is, we've somehow managed to spread far and wide while still maintaining a very family-like relational cohesion. And without sounding like I'm overestimating myself too much, I think it all ties to relational strength among the directors, who all have very strong relational strength with network of people. So it all sort of revolves around a relational network with us at the core, and we are the oldest, literally, in our church. And so it's not a role. I don't think. I mean, I play roles and I have functions, but Kelly and I, our role as just being the relational center that everybody just listens to, I think that's going to come to an end and not be replaced. So we're going from something like a family to a little bit more process and maybe strength, gifting, merit-based kind of organization, which is a big shift, big cultural shift, and it won't happen like in one step. And it's not just Kelly and I that's going to retire. Like we need to, we're all lifelong friends, lifelong people on mission together. So we need to figure out a path for everyone to retire into. So, the other directors, they're, maximum about a decade behind us. And so, when you get to be in your 60s, like some of us are super agers and some people are going to start losing it a little faster. So, right around that time, we all need to be, like gardening somewhere in one of our retreat sites, or like we all need to figure something out to do together. And hopefully we'll be a wisdom council there to draw from. So it's not just figuring out our organizational future, but also kind of a fulfilling and age-appropriate pathway for us and all the subsequent people, leaders who have been faithful 3 decades, 4 decades, and that's got to feel good. That's got to feel like Acts 2. That's got to feel fulfilling. We'll continue to preach the gospel somewhere. We'll start going to different nursing homes, and so that has to be figured out, like a pathway it's like, for our whole church.
Is Barnabas part of that, or is that?
Yeah. So Barnabas is a huge part of that because we're noticing that people. So in another 10 years, we're going to have, I think it's 99 exactly, empty nester couples.
Wow.
99.
Right now we have 17.
Wow.
Man, once you're an empty nester, you don't have to go home. Like and by that time you have so much wisdom.
Yeah.
And there's such benevolence toward young guys doing the hard things in the front lines. And so I think, so we started the Barnabas group, Barnabas from Son of Encouragement, to encourage our younger couples, offering a lot of wisdom, classes like how to talk to your children, how to handle stress. But I think it has to be built out a lot more, and a lot more at all of our hub cities where we can be within driving reach of a lot of younger people, so that we can take care of their marriage and their families. So that will be a big part of it. As for the organizational shape of our movement, I can see workable solutions around several different paths, and we haven't quite settled on one. I think we can become radically autonomous and be tied together in a cooperative sense. So we'll cooperate together for big projects. We'll still do like national staff conference, but maybe open it up to outsiders. Or we can do, we can place a lot more of the governance and decision making in the regions, because often the local ministry, depending on what city, what campus you're in, you're not going to have the people resources to be able to handle some things that come up. And so maybe the region. And so we would, and the thing that I'm afraid of is people think, oh no, we're breaking up. And like, no, we're not. We're actually going to enhance ministry and keep our very people-centric orientation, person-centered orientation and considerations by making decision-making happen much closer to the people that are going to have to live with those decisions or need some help. So it's sort of the size of the basic unit and how decision making is going to happen there, and there'll probably be some kind of plurality of leaders, but the plurality of leaders sort of specializing in maybe mission expansion, staff care, things like that, so that people's lanes are predefined by their roles, and then some may be very loose national organization, which at a certain point may just phase out. So that's sort of one pathway. Another pathway is to keep the national organization strong in terms of training resources, because I think one of the things about our church is we're all about bivocational, everybody in our network, vast majority, but they're getting plenty of training and expertise by doing it, but sometimes they need to be pulled back and receive some training. And so and training is one way to kind of create a sense of oneness without it being organizationally united. So that's another idea. So we're trying to figure that out still. Yeah.
So there's a lot, kind of like you're saying, necessarily with you guys gone, things are going to change. Like, it's not going to be the exact same. I guess one question would be, what are some of the things that you feel like we definitely have to hold on to, like preserve kind of the non-negotiables no matter what? This we need to preserve about us. You know, maybe it's not that we're one big group anymore, but this we need to preserve. And then what are some things that people might not think about that you think we could let go of, that, you know, that we do currently, but you would be okay losing?
Well, I think the number of things that we need to preserve, I think depending on at what resolution we talk about it, it could go on and on. But I think the priesthood of all believers, you know, everybody should be serving in ministry, no spectators, no pew warmers. De-emphasizing gifting so that it doesn't subvert priesthood of all believers, everybody being on ministry together. That value and tension. And then I think very sort of low emphasis on doctrinal fine points of doctrine. You know, mere Christianity, GOSPEL, you know, gospel, soul winning, saving souls, very Great Commission focused, and doing it as a family on mission together. I mean, spiritual family on mission together. So I think if we preserve that, everything kind of follows. I think there are a lot of things we could lose, and in some ways, I think the younger somebody is, the more they don't know how to distinguish what's central and what are just like precedents that somebody did that you don't have to do anymore, or you know, it's very flexible.
Yeah, what are some of those?
I think a lot of our value stances of the past had certain decisions around them that were very context specific and time specific and generation specific, but those keep getting passed down. So I don't know, what are some of those? I think like being all up in arms about like flirtatious behavior and co-ed gatherings and things like that. I think we totally lose that. There's no way that's a battle we can win or worth engaging in. So I still hear people saying like, oh no, you know, a bunch of upperclassmen got together like some freshmen and sophomores and at the dorm lounge, and they were watching, I don't know,
movie.
something, and
Yeah.
and of course you're nervous about that, right? And you weren't there, and if people are doing something and you weren't there, you already feel like, well, what the heck happened? You already feel a little bit disapproving toward that, and then these are students, and maybe so you're concerned about, so this sort of like, oh, one bad exposure to something shady could like infect them or something, like kind of hyper vigilant, sort of antiseptic, germophobic kind of point, like that kind of view of people and ministry. I think it was like early on, we're really struck by a sense of God's holiness, and I think a lot of us early on came out of Korean churches. Like the top leadership still remains very Korean, and there's something about Korean churches, especially in the in the 70s and 80s. It was like an immigrant phenomenon. People immigrate, like you can be whatever, you're going to go to church. So, all the deacons are drinking and smoking, and like, it's sort of a community gathering. And so kids growing up, they saw a lot of that kind of thing. And reacting against that, I think we were very, very locked in on holiness. No drinking. It's surprising today.
Because we don't want to be that church.
But the vast majority of evangelicals thought you couldn't touch a drop of alcohol. And smoking, I don't know what the problem. Like smoking is like, oh my gosh, you're such a sinner. The pastor comes, you're hiding all the cigarettes and stuff. And so those kind of boundary marking, and I think some of that's laudable, even if the specifics seem a little dated now. Like, and the idea of not losing God's blessing is still very, very important to me. Like, we don't want to lose God's blessing. And I think doing ministry in a way that violates God's values, it may get you short-term gains, but no. So, again, if I see somebody like extremely talented but poor character, like, no, I'm not going to exploit your gifting. I'm going to work on your character and try to. So those are some of the. So I'm going all over the place, but so that focus on holiness. And I think we're young and we're scared. God was doing something in our midst, and we did not want to compromise at all.
Want to guard it.
Yeah. But then it became maybe a little too rigid over time, especially when we're imposing this or trying to make that kind of a requirement for Christian discipleship among college students. So we used to have a very strong stance against like gaming, for example, like video gaming. I just thought that was crazy. That was horrible. Like, how could you possibly do that? And now you have like pastors gaming. Like, it's
a lot more mainstream.
Things change. Yeah. But when it first comes, like our initial reaction is like, wait, what is that?
Yeah.
Is it okay to just indiscriminately go with that? And so then some of those precedents and some of that tone and some of that attitude gets played out in ways that are not very context specific. And and then like, is that what's important versus this person getting the gospel? So I think we've even tried to spell out all of the things, like, hey, like, this doesn't apply anymore, right?
Like in the way of life and things like that.
Yeah. It's subtle, because I think what I'm hearing you say is like, it's there. We are who we are, still, and there are things that we for different reasons, like we like really held on to them, and maybe it had a lot to do with even our own spiritual progress and growth and everything, and so you can't just like suddenly just cut that out of yourself and say we're not doing that anymore, right? But to as you mature, as you get older, as you realize what hills are worth dying on and stuff, you gotta, it's a process almost to kind of sort that out. And so it's not maybe not the easy answer that I mostly want to hear. Like, well, can we just stop? Like, let's just free it up. But I appreciate hearing the thoughts.
It's graduated too. So understanding of ethics as graduated. Graduated ethics. So you don't impose certain, like, I have a pet peeve about telling kids to share. Like 2, 3-year-olds, like, nah, you don't need to share. You grab that first. You keep it. Because another kid will come and grab the truck or whatever and say, share. And then some teacher or babysitter is liable to say, yeah, you should share. Like, it's not breakable. It's not like a piece of bread you can share, right? So somebody has to keep it. I think, like, graduated ethics would say, well, he's only 3 years old. Just, like, don't burden him with sharing.
Yeah.
So
just don't kill each other.
Yeah. So, so I think to understand where college students are and where like if you're a dad and you have toddlers and you're still playing video games on your phone constantly, at a certain point, I'm like grabbing that phone and like yelling at you, at a certain, if I love you and if we're close enough, dude, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
Don't you see this kid looking at you? I wouldn't do that to an 18-year-old, So all of that's very nuanced. How close are you? What age appropriate? And we're still very much against media from time stewardship perspective, as well as addictive, well as being exposed to sexual imagery and all of that unholy stuff. Like, I'd rather not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one big shift I think I've seen in our thinking is, hey, it's like what you're saying, it's the graduated ethics thing. I think maybe we didn't have a good handle on that before. It's sort of like, as soon as you enter our door, like, we're going to dump the whole enchilada on you, and now it's like, okay, freshmen, we're not going to fight those battles. And if you're still around 30 out of college and you still want to be here, then okay, then we can start talking about those things. So I think that's...
Yeah, and also students back in the days, they were stronger. I think the power dynamic was... I felt like
they'll just say no if they don't want to do it. Right?
Yeah, or they'll pretend that they're going along and they're totally not, and
they're okay with that.
I kind of know they're not.
Yeah.
So it's this weird Korean culture thing that people don't understand. It's really hard to describe. But when a person of authority tells you to do something that's ridiculous, you say that you'll do it. And then you totally won't. And so this is interesting. And the person who told you to do it, like, this guy's not going to do it, but you appreciate the fact that he lied to you and said, I'm going to do it. and it like
complex.
Western lens on that is like, that's deceptive and that's wrong. And how can you ever communicate anything in an organization like that? But there's aspects of that that's sort of honoring and face-saving, but you're kind of out of touch, and I'm actually not really going to do that. Like, be careful when you cross the street, son. And, the son's like 20 years old. Like, oh, thank you, Dad, for telling me that. I'll be careful. I'm totally not going to be careful, right? I'm going to ignore it. So there's that... So the students change, too, and people have become way more... people-pleasing and feel easily pressured and things like that. So here we are,
Very
a church
socially
that's trying to be like,
conscious.
like really, really uphold the holiness of God, really wanting to disciple students and make them holy and transformed and be like Jesus, and a rapidly changing social, emotional, psychological context.
Yeah. So back in the day, it felt like, oh, these words, like this exhortation, it's just like a little stick I'm poking with you with. Yeah. Whereas now it's perceived as, no, you're holding a sword to my throat. I thought this was just a little stick. It's a battle axe in there. Yeah, I can see that.
So you're naming, like, I mean, we talked about like things we need to preserve and lose. It sounds like there's a lot of pivots we need to make organizationally and all that stuff. But it's also, on the other side, what you're touching on is a lot of changes in the culture around us, a lot of changes in the world, where it seems like every day something crazier and crazier is happening. Can you just share like just some of your thoughts on that, just like what's going on in the world and our churches, like
how we need to change to meet that? I think.
Yeah, or
also.
what role we might fill or space we might play in there. I mean, I think we've begun to just. We talk about that sometimes, just what's going on in the world. And
I think it's important to be aware, but not complain too much.
I complain about the world and how bad the world is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is actually one of the things happening in our culture.
Yeah.
Like America is just the worst, and we live in the hardest time ever, and raising children in America is nearly impossible. That's one of the things that's happening in the culture.
Yeah.
Christian version of that is like, oh my gosh, the world is crazy, and we have to we have to huddle together in this enclave and reject the world. And so that's always been the case, but now that everybody's in their information silos, then it gets amplified. I think the trend is, kind of peaked of everybody trying to outdo themselves in thinking that they've been victimized. I think that trend has sort of peaked, hopefully. And I think while caring for the weak against powerful authority figures that can harm them comes from a good place, I think everybody agrees it's been a little overdone. And the net effect of that is the generation that grew up with that, they're very, very lonely because they're cutting off everybody. They're cutting off friends. They're cutting off an entire generation as being clueless. Parent-child estrangement is like really on the rise, and it's, like 90% of it is children sort of disowning parents. So, and I think people are seeing that, and so I think the community creating power of the gospel is in desperate need more than any other time I've seen. Yeah, and we've tried not to be angry at these kinds of trends. I think the conditions in which we're doing ministry is more favorable than any other time. I think that's true. And the harvest continues to be plentiful. So I think bemoaning the trend of the world is not a good pastime for Christians. While we need to discern, like it says in Ephesians chapter 5, you need to discern the time and find out and expose the fruitless deeds of darkness. So we need to be critique. We need to have a critique of the culture always from a biblical perspective. But emotionally, I don't think that should defeat us.
Kind of a related question. So I don't know if that's why, but I do feel like we're seeing that in our culture. I also think that one thing I've been seeing is that just college ministry. I want to ask you some college ministry questions because we're a college ministry church, at least initially.
Launching life function words from every college town.
And but college ministry has been tough.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality. Like our ministries have not been doing well as maybe like 10 years ago, like when we were in college.
It's very different when we were in college.
And we jokingly say that we're going to make college ministry great again. Not in a political sense. We are apolitical, but just we just say that to be funny. But like what are some shifts that you think we didn't make that our college ministry needs to make to kind of, I don't know,
meet the moment.
Yeah, meet the moment, I guess, because I don't know if anyone has the answers to that, and I know it's a question we're all asking, but
just Christian work in general has suffered a lot. I think a lot of organizations that used to see crowds gathering, that's no more. So there's something about the culture that doesn't take to showing up at a certain time at a certain place. And that's sort of the formula that a lot of Christian work has depended on.
It's like it's your Sunday service. It's 12 p.m.
And people just don't operate that way. I don't show up to a certain place at a certain time that starts at a certain point
I don't
and
even
ends
show up
at a
at work.
certain
I work
point.
from home. Yeah.
Yeah,
Class.
people just don't do that anymore unless you're Taylor Swift and you're like this phenomenal talent that you cannot experience that anywhere else. You know, and that's rarely the case. So, and then what do? We bring them to a room and we want to deliver them content, but there's amazing content everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I think people just have a hard time getting out of that mindset because people won't get out of a habitual thing unless there's an interesting thing for them to get out into. And so what I think we need to do is generate way more options. And I think we should kind of sort of break out of here are the things you're supposed to do, including Sunday service is supposed to be on a Sunday and it's a particular place with a preacher. I think when we break out of all of that and then generate, I don't think it's possible, or I don't think there's some genius who's going to figure this out, because then that would have happened already. I think what we need to do is create a lot of options so that kind of evolutionarily something emerges. And we haven't been able to do that because I think our usual methods have had inertia and has had enough fruit. But it's not as fruitful as it used to be. I think it's time to kind of create way more teams to go out to way more campuses with high permission and maybe even prohibition against certain things, like
you can't do Sunday.
You can't do a Sunday service,
Wow.
Something like that. But I think we need to do that. I think we needed to do that.
Yeah. That resonates. Yeah, I do feel like I'm running into students on campus and they are spiritually hungry. They have questions, but like as good as that conversation is out on campus, like when the special talk or the Bible study rolls around, they don't come, they forget, or so like, yeah, how do we meet them in the middle, and what are some other options and ways to engage? And I don't know if anyone like has the answer, but it does we
and we have tantalizing clues. But then because we have our 7-day, hamster wheel that sucks our energies, we're not able to follow our hunches and try different things to see, test out what's going to happen. So I feel like this 2025, we really need to maximize the diversity of approaches and who leads and what like team configuration and what kind of campuses. And so I think we need to figure it out.
Yeah, 2025 will be the year to make college great again. I think so. I don't know.
The year the great scattering. It'll be the year great sowing.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh yeah, I like that.
So, couple more questions. I think we're going to wrap up in a little bit, but kind of just as zooming out now, as you think about the future, and I mean, like, to be frank, I think for a lot of us at our church, especially the ones who've been around for a bit, the thought of post Pastor Ed and Kelly Acts2 Network is not just hazy, but kind of scary, terrifying.
It's pretty fearful.
What would you say? What are a couple things that give you confidence and hope that Acts2 Network will be okay after you're gone? And maybe what are the things that worry you, if you want to go there? But
I feel pretty confident. I actually do. If we're all in one place, and I suddenly died, it's like, uh-oh. But we're already so scattered that there's going to be, like, let's say that we never talked about succession and none of this was in the works. We didn't, and we suddenly die. What's going to happen? Whatever happens, every local leader has their team, and we share the DNA. And I think eventually the fellowship will happen according to organic and sensible ways, like within driving distance or something like that. So I don't think that there's like one missile that can take us out anymore. But what I'm eager to preserve is this sense that we are going to be friends and co-laborers, fellow, King, Cause, and Crew until the grave. Like that continuity and that sense that whatever happens to me, I have this whole network that's going to take care of me.
Yeah.
Like that sense of security. Because I think people are brave when they know that they're loved.
Yeah.
And so I think preserving that, I think that's going to get preserved. It's just preserving that in some kind of in the way that we enjoy it currently. It might not be even such a helpful thing. So the several different ways that things can pan out if we don't smoothly do the succession, none of those paths look very, very awful to me. Yeah, but I know that's just me. I know that I know like if you're like a sixth year and you happen to be at a church and all of your friends are like in a different city and your peer, like the three peers you have there, like you don't really like each other, and then like the Iron Curtain comes down, let's say, or something, then like oh no, I want to move, and so some of that would or could happen. It's not the end of the world, but I feel like culture is really resilient, and I experienced us going through COVID with hardly any problems. In fact, I think we had fun. And then after COVID emerges, I see like all of these. Like I heard John Tyson, who's a pastor that a lot of people think is like sort of the spiritual legacy of Tim Keller is continued by him, and he was quoted in an interview as saying 75% of what Tim Keller and the Redeemer Network did in the past 30 years has been wiped out through COVID. So I don't know what that means, but wow. So, but I think that we're going to be pretty resilient, but then continuing to expand and continuing to like send out teams, that may slow for a while. Because while everybody's paying attention to the local ministries, the mission expansion part has been carried by me and Kelly largely. And so I think that has to be divvied up, soon.
Got it.
Any final words for people watching this? I think in particular, like, as you look at this, the younger ones, I know everyone is a younger one to you, but as you look at the younger ones, what would you tell them? Like, hey, here is, like, if you could tell them one thing and they were going to listen, they're going to actually carry it out.
not the Korean way.
Yeah, like they're actually going to listen. They're actually going to do it. Like, what would be that piece of advice? Hey, work on this so that no matter what happens after I'm gone, you'll be okay.
Well, boy, I feel like I'm always talking about that in one way or another, but wow. I think the latest thing that's sort of bugging me is the ability to open your Bible and bless people. I think one thing that our ministry could be characterized as having solved in a way that many ministries have not solved is how to do effective ministry with a lot of eager people who are willing, but who don't have the ability to teach Bible. Right? We've leveraged the efforts of a lot of people to be able to church plant and go out in mission fields. And I think what I'm sensing in the culture is that there's going to be a need for informal, like let's just read the Bible together. And so I think the future is going to involve a lot more of those kinds of small gatherings that are not like, okay, you are part of my discipleship group, but so just overall Bible competency in the sense of being able to draw out, so not like proclaiming and preaching the word so much. I think we're really strong on personal evangelism, sharing the gospel, but getting people engaged in just the text of Scripture. I think through years of daily devotions, there should be some level of competence on that. But I think we should raise more people who actually have some training on how to lead those kinds of Bible studies.
Yeah, that resonates. There was that article the other day about how like Bible purchases have gone up like 20% from last year or something, and a lot of it is among young Gen Z
people. And first-time Bible purchasers.
Bible readers, and like something like 60% like want to know about the Bible or something like that. So like the hunger's there. They might not come to church for it or like a Bible study, but if someone they know or a friend will open up the Bible with them. And,
it's less like come to something to receive content. It's more like, no, you have to be the content.
Now all of us have to be the content.
What I would, to kind of make it more concrete for everybody, I would say approach your daily devotion more systematically. Spend a chunk of time every week or maybe 10, 15 minutes afterwards and organize your thoughts. If somebody shared something that was interesting, write it down, capture it somewhere so that next time you go to that text, it's there. And just keep sort of depositing it somewhere instead of just thinking about it as an experience that's over and you got blessed through it and that's it, So,
well, on that note, I think or did you have any final questions before we?
No, I don't think so. Any thoughts for what you're gonna do in retirement?
Oh yeah. What are you gonna do once you're done here?
I know there's probably like.
There's one thing I'm terrified of is rest. I cannot rest. So we have to. So retirement is not that. Oh, we're leaving our church, or have nothing to do anymore, and I'm going to go somewhere in Florida and golf. It's the idea that me and along with others in due time, we are going to step away from all directional leadership role with respect to our. But I personally feel like I would have a great time writing children's curriculum. I think investing in our children's ministry, I think, is probably one of the most important things anybody can be doing right now. Like if you're in Acts2 Kids ministry, that's not babysitting. And I think we've been searching high and low for good children's ministry content, and it's pretty poor. So that's something I think I would enjoy doing.
Wow. So even after retiring, just next gen, like investing in the next gen.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man, I think we can close it there. Thanks for coming on, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and we will see you on a future episode.
Okay.
Thank you.